After Close Encounters of the Third Kind was such a big success, Steven Spielberg began developing another story centered around alien life forms. It was called Night Skies, and would feature a family of 5 aliens attacking humans on a Kentucky farm. One of the human children in the story befriended an alien named Buddy, and after some careful consideration, Spielberg decided this subplot might actually be the most compelling thing in the story. Melissa Matheson agreed to write the script after some convincing from both Spielberg and then partner Harrison Ford. The script was only half the battle, however. This story would require 3 incredible child actor performances to carry it. The film would go on to break box office records, receive multiple Academy Awards, inspire a podcast 40 years later, and change the lives of those 3 child actors forever. Drew Barrymore, Henry Thomas, and our very first guest. Hello, and welcome to what we are calling the E.T. Enthusiast, where we are going to talk about all things E.T., the extraterrestrial related, which some people might say, E.T., there's only one E.T. movie, there's no TV show, there's no sequels. How are you going to do a whole show, a whole podcast about E.T.? But there's lots of other things we can talk about. There's commercials, there's theme parks, there's everything. And we are starting it off with a bang here with someone who is actually one of the stars of E.T. It's none other than Mr. Robert Macnaughton himself. How are you, Robert?
Hi, good. How are you, Wesley?
I'm doing great. It's great to talk to you. We met a few months back at Days of the Dead horror convention here in Atlanta. Yeah, and it was great. I hadn't been to one of the Days of the Dead ones yet, and I know you guys do a lot of those.
They're so much fun. I think I've done like 5 or 6 of them now.
Wow.
Days of the Dead is always the most fun, in my opinion, because it's a little bit wild. D also enjoys doing them too, because something crazy always happens.
Yeah, it's kind of another world for E.T. because I know Dee Wallace, she's in a lot of horror stuff, but then E.T. is kind of like wedged its way into this horror convention, which I think is cool. I guess sci-fi and horror, they kind of go hand in
hand, but I never had done any of the horror conventions. I had done several sci-fi conventions and comic book conventions.
Yeah.
But then I finally did a horror movie with Damien Leone, who directed Terrifier.
Oh, wow.
So he asked me to do one day on one of his movies.
That's
so
awesome.
I figured now I can actually officially do them without feeling like a poser.
Yeah.
But Henry has he was Norman Bates in Psycho 4, and he's done a lot of horror. He was in Ouija the Revenge.
Yeah, the Ouija sequel, and then now Hill House and all of that.
And then Dr. Sleep, which was so I think Henry's more than qualified to do horror.
And depending on who you ask, some people might say E.T. is a horror movie, because I know a lot of people are scared of him.
I've seen I've seen excellent articles written where all the reasons that E.T. was terrifying for little children, and they make a good point. It's like there's many aspects of E.T. that are really scary. I didn't let my son see it until he was 6 or 7. My oldest son, Noah, he saw and his first time seeing it was at the premiere in LA. They had a 20th anniversary premiere with John Williams conducting the orchestra.
Oh, the 2002 re-release.
Yep, and that was the first time he saw it. Was
wow.
When let's see, he was born in '97, so yeah, he was like 5 or 6. But before that, I didn't want him to see it because I know seeing it in the theaters, it was scary for a lot of kids. The beginning, cornfield, and when they sort of, you don't see him, so then all of a sudden, when you first see him, he pops up.
I distinctly remember the first time I watched it, which was probably also like 2001 or 2002. We watched it on VHS, and I still remember going through just like I was probably in like 2nd grade, and I went through like every emotion watching that, where when he first pops out, I made my parents pause it and was crying and didn't want to finish it. And then by the end, you're laughing, having a good time, and then you're crying for a whole nother reason. And that's when I was like, I think I want to do something with movies. I like movies now.
It's why it was so nice to see, like, the last few years or so before, before 2020, that a lot of, they were starting to have film, where they're showing the film for free, like families outdoors. We saw it in, with the Brooklyn Bridge in the background, and it was just all families on the lawn and stuff. And a lot of times the parents were bringing their kids, and that was the first time they were seeing the movie. But it was kind of, it's very much, to me, I think it's very much a communal movie. It works so much better when you see it with an audience, and especially an audience of kids, because it always sort of wins over the audiences.
Yeah, I've seen it a lot in theaters over the years, and I know the Plaza Theater here in Atlanta. It's like I think the oldest theater in Atlanta. They showed it last year on I think it was 72 millimeter, and that was a blast. Yeah, and then a few years ago, I've seen it different random theaters, and there's always at least one kid in the audience. Like after the movie, you can tell that they're like crying, but like crying for a good reason. Like they've never felt this way about a movie before. Like it really gets you choked up, and you're like, what? Like, I think when you're a kid, you don't think about that as being a possibility. Like a lot of stuff goes over your head, but there's something about E.T. that really hits.
Friendship. It hits home, I think, for younger kids, because it's, they have a best friend, or they have even an imaginary friend, or a teddy bear or something, and they can picture that having to say goodbye. It's universal in that sense.
Yeah, it's just very much also feels very much like a movie just made. There's a lot of movies made for kids, but this one, like, just the way it's shot and the way it deals with kids. It's about kids and for kids, and
Steven wasn't like a little kid. I would say more, when we were filming, he was more like a teenager with a teenager sensibility, that he kept like a sort of a youthful, excitement about things. He gets so excited about whatever he's, at that time, whatever his interest is.
Yeah.
He gets you interested in it.
Mm-hmm.
So enthusiastic. I guess that's the word I'm looking for. He's enthusiastic like a teenager instead of being, jaded. And and so that comes across. Plus, I think the writer of it, Melissa Matheson, was so she was surrounded by children while she was writing the script, or more accurately, teenagers. The main two characters, my character and Henry's character, well, we're not the main two characters, I shouldn't say that. But
I would say that, that's fair.
The two boys in the family are based on her two boys, with Harrison Ford. Well, she was their stepmother, but she was living with them at the time when she wrote the script for E.T. So and she had a really great ear for dialogue that was real, and kind of a lot of the insults in the movie, a lot of stuff that the friends say to us. With,
all the douchebag talk.
C. Thomas Howell's character and Casey Martell's character and Sean Fry's character, they're all sort of based on the two boys' friends, because one of the boys was 10 and one of the boys was 14. And so in a large part, our characters aren't necessarily straight, just like they are, but they're like they are, plus also all of their friends.
Yeah.
So that, that sensibility comes across, plus the deliberate, idea of filming it from E.T.'s perspective, which is also the children's perspective.
Right.
I'll never forget, though, this, there was a guy, and he had one scene in the movie, but he had dialogue. He had a whole scene that played the cop that's coming in after Henry loses E.T. out in the woods. And there's a cop saying, do you know where he is, and all that. And he had a whole scene. And I remember when they're setting up the camera and just seeing his face when he was like realizing that he was not going to be on screen at all, when it was just going to be his like knees. And I just felt so bad for the guy because, I know what it's like to, you work so hard just to get one line in a movie. And here you have a whole scene, but you're not going to, the same thing for the teacher and the frog scene. You never see him.
Yeah, it's the Monsters Inc. thing where Mike Wazowski always gets covered by like a logo or something.
Yeah. Yeah, and I felt so bad for those actors, and but that was really effective for the movie.
Yeah, for sure.
Because Mary's the only adult that you see up until the end, and she's almost like one of the kids.
Yeah.
Just her personality, and she has like that youthful spirit. She still does. She's younger than me. I don't know how it keeps happening, but I show up and I'm like, she looks so great. She's like, D is like amazing.
Yeah, she's something else. She's a pistol for sure.
Force of nature, and her heart is so good. I mean, I've done some of these conventions where we work together, and it's like I don't know how she has the energy, but she also cares about everybody that she meets. Like truly, she puts herself out there, and like it's like that's like really remarkable.
Yeah, I have so much respect for her because I reached out to her in 2020 when we were at like the height of the pandemic, and I started interviewing people, and I just reached out to a few random people, and she was one of them, and I was like, I'm never gonna hear back. And I think she was the first person I heard back from and was like, yeah, let's do it. I was like, no way, that's incredible. She doesn't have to do that, but she's recently, great. Yeah,
she had gotten in touch with me because there was like there was a class, and they had just gone virtual in Spain, and this teacher was trying to keep her students interacting, and she had sent a request. I think she had sent it to Dee's Twitter or something like that, but Dee contacted me immediately, and she's like, she just wants you to record a message for this class of children in Spain, because this teacher, and it was basically just, saying something in Spanish. I learned, I took Spanish back in high school, but that was so long ago, I forgot all of it. But so it's just like one line to rehearse a line for the Spanish class saying, because it was all the children had drawn artwork of ET, and, the teacher was sort of keeping them engaged, but Dee was the first one that contacted me, and she's
That's
busy.
awesome.
I mean,
yeah,
I got time, but she's always, it's like she's working, and she's doing, she has like a podcast, a radio show.
Yeah.
Always doing something.
Yeah, that's amazing. I bet those kids must have been losing their minds.
Oh yeah, the teacher sent us a nice thank you, like a, because it was like we just recorded a short message in Spanish, but it was, all the students had written us letters, in English, writing, because I don't know if she taught English, but she had, but so they had written, how much they loved the teacher, and can you say something nice about her? That wasn't coming from her, that was coming from the kids. And so, we learned something in Spanish, and then each of us did a different thing.
That's awesome. Backtracking a little bit, I wanted to ask you about how you got cast in ET, how all this started, like how you heard about it, how you auditioned, because I know Henry's audition goes around YouTube all the time. I feel like I get that suggested to me all the time, the crying and all that. But I'd love to hear about and then Dee, I asked her about it, and she didn't audition, so I'd love to hear.
No, she didn't have to. She was, they already had her in mind from a different film.
Yeah, so Used Cars.
Have to audition.
Yeah,
Used Cars, so right?
Yeah, so I'd love to hear about how it came about for you.
Drew was also, she read for Poltergeist.
Right.
So I think I'm not sure if she had to audition or not, but I don't think so, because I think Steven already, she knocked him out with her audition for Poltergeist, but it was just, it's her personality was, so strong, it was perfect for ET. He probably already had ET in the works, when he was auditioning for Poltergeist.
Yeah, because those are filming kind of at the same time, right? I know I've seen pictures of you guys with the cast of Poltergeist at the same time.
Well, we never, they filmed at a different studio right before us. And
Aha.
we never filmed at the same time, but the movies came out, like I think Poltergeist was 2 weeks before ET or vice versa.
Wow.
But we did post-production work at Culver Studios after ET was done, like looping dialogue, and
Mm.
so we had school with the three cast members from Poltergeist, with Oliver and Heather O'Rourke and Dominique, and
Wow.
we had school all together, and so that's what the pictures are all from that day. When we went to lunch with Steven, and we were walking around the studio a lot there. So
That's awesome. Were those pictures planned, or like was someone just like, we got to grab a camera right now? This is
no, there was a camera there because some of the stuff we were doing, they were taking, stills, but they
yeah.
weren't specifically to take pictures of us with the cast from Poltergeist. It just sort of happened like by accident that we all, like, he invited us to lunch. I think we went to the commissary. I can't remember. But so the pictures were sort of off the cuff because we were, in school together, and then we were doing our stuff at separate times, the looping. Like
Yeah.
that day, I remember I was doing the naughty language that I have in ET, which is like, at that time you couldn't say that stuff on TV. Now it's like anything goes, but at that time, so some of the dialogue I had was, bad words, and so what I was doing was just looping, acceptable words for television over the.
Oh, wow.
And I think they were doing something similar for Poltergeist, and also a few things here and there, like just post-production, little minor things.
Do you remember any of those the words that you used to replace?
I wish. I don't.
I know they have some goofy ones sometimes.
Yeah, I know. For Do the Right Thing, Mickey Ficky was used quite a lot. And Mickey Ficky actually became slang in certain places, because in Do the Right Thing, they throw around MF, and so they substituted Mickey Ficky, like buy your own Mickey Ficky batteries and stuff like that.
That's pretty good.
I can't remember the ones for ET. I know they didn't take out penis breath, which I wish they had, but that's not a bad word. But
that's the one line that I think everybody forgets is in there, and then you take your kid to see it and you go, "Oops."
It's actually, I registered it as my Ethernet address, because every Ethernet addresses have .eth.
Uh-huh.
Mine is penisbr.eth.
Oh man,
So
that's fantastic.
I on that while it was available.
That's incredible.
I registered phone home ETH and extraterrestrial ETH too.
That's great.
I don't know, I don't know if anybody will, do anything with it, or if I'll do anything with it, but
hey, that's no, definitely. Am I right that your audition scene was it you and the guys kind of hanging out playing D&D, or am I?
That was one of them. My first audition actually was just a meeting with Steven, and I didn't even read or anything. It was just meeting him. He asked me what it was weird because, I was so nervous. And usually with Steven, people get nervous and then they forget about it about 5 minutes into the conversation, because he's just so down to earth, and he makes you feel comfortable. So but it was kind of a weird situation because I was meeting him on the day that President Reagan was shot in 1989. Wow. So it was in the morning, and it was chaotic because it had just happened. And, so I remember, like, I think Frank Marshall ran in at one point and said that James Brady, who also got shot when President Reagan was shot, James Brady got hit, and they had thought he was dead. So they said James Brady just died, and it was just very chaotic, which was good, I think, because then it made me feel a little bit less, I mean, it wasn't good that it wasn't
you're like, hey, right. You're like, hey, it could be worse.
Yeah, no, it was just good because it took my mind off of being so nervous about meeting Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
So then
That
we just talked, and I said I like to play Dungeons and Dragons, and he goes, "Well, that's in the movie." And I had no
wow.
idea what was in the movie. I had, he just asked what my interests were, and I said I ride bikes. I kind of answered everything right.
I love Reese's Pieces. I love.
No, that wasn't quite. I don't think that was in the movie yet, because that happened later when they couldn't get
Yeah,
M&Ms.
yeah. But
I never
that's
saw
pretty
it.
wild that you were already kind of your character.
It was just sheer luck. And I
Yeah.
also got in late because I missed all the preliminary auditions. I was in New York. I was doing a play in New York, and that's sort of how I ended up in. I was doing the play in New York, and I auditioned for a different movie, and the casting director wanted me to fly out to LA to audition for that movie. It was called The Entity with Barbara Hershey, like a
Oh,
horror.
wow.
And so then I didn't get the part, and the casting director felt bad for me because she said, "I'm so sorry you had to come all this way." I didn't tell her I lived in California anyway, but so anyway, so then she said, "I hear that they're doing something over at Fenton Feinberg, who cast ET." And she said, "I can make a phone call, and maybe it might not be too late for you to get in on it." And
Wow.
so she did me an enormous favor. That was a casting director named Barbara Clayman in
Wow.
California. And she just did me an enormous favor. And, so then the meeting with Steven went well. So then that's when they had me come in and do like an improv scene where I was like supposed to show, or Henry was supposed to show me the ET.
Mhm.
But I never read with Henry. I only read with all the other actors that read for Elliot. And
Wow.
Henry was in San Antonio, so I didn't actually. I read with about 3 or 4 different actors that they were considering for Elliot, and then so they kept me to read with the other actors, which was a good sign, because I felt good about it then. And then they had the last audition was sort of, I think, to see how we all got along together. And that was the one. It was at Harrison Ford's house, and we were reading. We were playing D&D.
Wow.
And
just casually playing D&D at Harrison Ford's house.
yeah, kind of. I mean, it was like with I believe it was with his youngest son played with us, and
Wow.
and then it was basically the actors that ended up in the movie, except for Henry, was cast later. Elliot was like the most important role to cast, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's the center of the film, so you gotta, that's the most important role. So Steven, I think, had seen a movie that Henry did called Raggedy Man, and Henry he's about 2 years younger than he is in ET, and he's amazing in it. It's like where did this kid come from? He's just like so natural, so and then he only got better and better after that. So and now he's just great. I mean,
Yeah.
now he's much more trained, as far as like he can do different period pieces. He can do comedy. He can do he's much more versatile, but he's always honest. He's always been a very honest and very sympathetic actor.
Yeah. Did you guys hit it off pretty good, like as soon as you met, or was it
This is
was
my
it really
dog.
like
My dog decided to join the chat. Henry and I hit it off right off the bat, because he just was very vulnerable, but just such an honest kid, like such no pretense, no kind of actor mannerisms. And he wasn't like, I don't know, there were a lot of like sort of child actors that were very, sort of egotistical and stuff. And Henry had none of that. Henry's family brought him up right. Henry grew up in Texas, and his parents were, working class, and he didn't have any kind of he was very humble, and I just admired all these qualities he had, and it was like a joy to work with them as far as acting, because he listened, he was very honest and truthful, and so we got along right away. Drew, Drew was exactly like she is in the movie. So the relationship that we have with her in the film, it kind of reflects the real relationship we had with her, where she was like always trying to, be the center of attention and trying to get in and do what we were doing. And she was just so cute. I mean, she steals every scene.
Yeah, that every time I see the movie, I pick up on something else, and then I'm like, man, there's really nobody funnier than Drew Barrymore and E.T. Like, it's
She
just
steals every scene.
it's just natural.
Yep.
And then I know you guys met Harrison Ford. Obviously, you said you did the thing at his house, but I know he came in and filmed a scene that got cut. He was supposed to be the principal. And did you guys?
You can find the scene on YouTube. It's on YouTube.
Yeah. He's like shrouded in darkness, like everybody else who's an adult. But
I was so jealous when Henry came and told me, because we were in school. If I wasn't in the scenes or working, there's very few scenes in ET that I'm not in that I watched being filmed or anything, because we were, it was always trying to balance they were making sure, because they only could work you 4 hours and then 3 hours of school, but not 3 continuous hours of school. So it was like we would be in school for half an hour and then we'd be on the set. You know what I mean? So it was always like a juggling act. So when Henry filmed that scene, I was just like so jealous, because Henry worshiped Harrison, still does.
Yeah, but at that time especially, because he's like just right off of
Indiana Jones. It was right after the first Raiders movie. So and when we were filming ET, I think he was filming Blade Runner or shortly before. So wow. I met him on that audition, but I didn't really talk to him much, because he was coming out of the shower when I got there. I think I got there a little early, and so he was kind of a little grumpy, because he was, I was there early. So, but he wasn't mean, but he was just like,
the classic grumpy Harrison Ford.
I was driving up from Irvine, and to his house, I forget where it was, up in the Pacific Palisades or somewhere like that, and so I was like early, because it's like it takes an hour to drive from Irvine. So I don't want to be late for an audition. Spielberg, it's best not to be late.
Yeah.
So I showed up early, which also was kind of a faux pas, because it's like, the guy's house.
Yeah.
And I had no way, I didn't know it was his house by the way, I showed up thinking it was just some house where I'm going to the audition.
Oh man.
And I can't remember if he answered the door, but he did come out of the shower at some point, and he, just like, what are these kids doing in my house? What the hell's going on here?
Oh man. Would have been nice to know beforehand that you're going to Harrison Ford's house.
Yeah, no, I had no idea. They didn't tell us. So then I remember Melissa was playing the album, Elvis Costello Trust album had just come out. It came out in like early 1981, and she was playing it, and everybody was listening to it, like Steven and Frank Marshall and Kathy Kennedy and all them they were listening to the new Elvis Costello album, and that was the first time I'd really heard him. I was aware of who he was, but that was the first time I'd actually heard his whole album. So I was kind of theater kid, so I was listening like show tunes and stuff, so I wasn't real cool. I wasn't like new wavy or anything at that time. So
yeah, I'm right there with you. And then is that I'm not familiar with a lot of Elvis Costello. My dad will kill me when he hears that, but
that's a great album.
Yeah, is that the album that has the song that you ended up singing in ET?
No, that was the album. I think it was right before that, or 2 albums before that. But the song I sang was "Accidents Will Happen," and then the album that was on was called "Armed Forces," also a great album. He just had a string of believable albums in a row, starting with his debut album, and then I think every year he put out just one that would top the last one. And
Yeah.
Trust is more of kind of a settled down album. It's kind of like it's kind of a more nightclubby, I want to say nightclubby album, but just incredible songwriting.
That's
And
awesome. Was there anything on the set of ET, like any games or anything that you guys like to do between takes? I know I was watching the HBO Max just did like a Harry Potter reunion, and they were talking about there's tons of kids on that set, but they were kind of talking about like, oh, we would all play slaps or whatever. And I was just curious if you guys had any things that became like ongoing things during filming.
I know we hung out also. Henry and I mostly hung out with Matt Demerit, who played inside the ET costume, and he would ride around on a skateboard. So there was like ramps and stuff. We were on the sound stage, and he would not skateboard ramps, but just like, I guess they were just like stairwells and stuff like that. But he was like, you know, like a stunt man. He would like ride down the ramp on his skateboard, and he was born without legs, but he didn't want to use the artificial legs, so he would get around on his hands, on his and he was the reason that ET sort of has that walk.
Yeah,
that's how Matt did. Well, he played it. Matt played it that way, but he has this very distinctive walk because Matt was walking on his hands inside the costume.
Yeah.
Doing all the physical stuff. Whenever they had to do like falling down or being drunk, or when the mother takes a picture and he falls down, that's all Matt. That's Matt. And so to me, that's a big part of ET's personality, is because of Matt Demerit.
Yeah, those scenes
So
are.
we hung out with him, and so we would have like those guns, those you're too young. They had these guns like phasers from Star Trek, but they would fire these like little round plastic discs, and we had those, and we would have wars where we would like chase each other and shoot each other, and they would hurt. I mean, they were like plastic discs, and they would fire pretty quick. I mean, they're not like BB guns, but they would, they bounce off you, but they, leave a mark. And so we did that. I remember we did that in parking garages too. We'd have wars in parking garages on different levels, so you could like lean down and shoot somebody.
Oh man, that's the best.
Yeah, and Matt would come zooming down the parking garage and like just firing off shots, and then just like get us,
That's a blast.
I played D&D with Henry primarily, like especially when we were on location in the Redwoods. He would always want to play D&D, so I think I sort of introduced him to it, and I would always have like be the dungeon master because I was more familiar with the modules, and I would set him up with a character, and one time Steven wanted to join us.
Wow, I was just about to ask if he ever hopped in.
One time he did, when we were up in Crescent City. He was hanging around the motel where we were all staying. It was raining, so it was like we were rained out, we couldn't film. And so he came by and said, "Hey, you guys, what are you doing?" And it was like, "You want to play?" And so then I'm nervous because I'm the DM, and so I roll up a character for him, and he had a pretty good character, but it's like the first encounter in this module is a giant snail, and the only way the giant snail could kill him is if it rolled a 20 on a 20-sided die, and it did. It attacked him and rolled a 20, which is a critical hit, and killed off Steven in the first 5 minutes, which was great. But
oh man,
I think he was like kind of eager to, he wanted to like play with us, but I don't think he wanted a whole like 2-hour D&D session. So I might have let him off the hook.
I guess that ended Steven Spielberg's D&D career pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think
but he always seemed like he was kind of into like fun, like nerdy stuff. I remember seeing pictures of him with like arcade cabinets in his office and that kind of thing. Like,
oh my God, you don't even know. That was they were brand new. They had Missile Command, and they had one other game which I can't remember, but the one that Steven played all the time with Frank Marshall, they had a feud, a rivalry on Missile Command. And it got so bad that when we went up to location, after the location at the Crescent City, in the Redwoods, those were the scenes filmed last for ET. So when we went up, it was the last week of filming. The rivalry was so bad that they had to bring the machines up. The camera crews had to load them on the trucks with the cameras, and they had to bring the missile command up to Crescent City, to where their office was in Crescent City, so they could keep the rivalry going.
Jeez,
and not only they weren't they would let us play whenever we didn't have school or we were on a break or something. They would let us drop by the office and play. I forget what the other game was, but I know the one was Missile Command, which I wasn't very good at. Missile Command. Asteroids was my game, and they didn't have asteroids, so
yeah, that's incredible.
The other one might have been Frogger. I can't remember.
It's not like today when you can just grab your Nintendo Switch or whatever and put it in a backpack. You have to lug a
at that time,
huge thing.
Mean, I think it was shortly before the home video. I mean, there was Atari, but then Atari was like the only one. And then right after ET came out, there was something called Mattel in television. And it was similar to Atari, but it had more options, more games, and they were closer to the actual arcade games and stuff.
Yeah. Did you ever, speaking of Atari, did you ever play the ET Atari game back in the day?
I never did. I never had an Atari, so I never played it. I played it since, like emulation of it, and it wasn't very good. It was.
Yeah, I know they always say that that's the one that like killed Atari and this and that, and it's pretty wild.
It was so, I think it was just so, like back then, the games that were available for Atari were very, it was like Breakout, where it was just like a paddle and a sliding control and the ball going up and down in bricks. The options were very limited what you could do with the graphics.
Mm-hmm.
So I think making any kind of game around a movie was difficult because, the only games were like either target shooting games or, very, I'm not even sure they were 8-bit. They might've been 4-bit graphics. So how are you going to represent ET with 4-bit graphics? And I think they didn't have much time to do it because it was a top secret project.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't want to tip their hand about like what the story was or anything.
Yeah.
So they didn't give them much time to develop the game. And then, it was like they just had to put out something ET.
Yeah, it's kind of how it was back then with a lot of stuff. Like just slap a name on it and everyone will buy it anyway. It'll be all right.
Especially they didn't really get good at that till Nintendo, till later on, for the original Nintendo.
Yeah.
And the tie-ins were good, but most of them were bad, but some of them were good.
How much did you know about ET going into it, like before you guys started filming? Like I know it was pretty under wraps.
Yeah, I did get the script at some point, but it was, it was top secret. I never saw a script until I was, got the part. And then we got a script that I think I had to return or, something. I don't think we kept it. So, it was so secret. I remember I couldn't tell my friends about it. And I'd seen a screening with an audience, but I still wasn't allowed to talk about it until it actually came out. So I remember being so excited and like riding around my neighborhood in Irvine on my bike. And I was hearing the John Williams theme in my head. And I was just so excited, but I couldn't tell anybody. I was just, it was thrilling to me, but, I took that seriously because I didn't want to, I didn't want to break my confidentiality agreement or anything.
Yeah. I was going to ask if you knew the movie would be a hit when you were making it, but I feel like when you're working with Steven Spielberg and you see all this like crazy animatronic stuff and spaceships and everything, you kind of know that it's going to be something huge.
I didn't. I mean, I knew it would automatically be just a really good film because of Steven and because, we all believed in it so much and everybody, but I thought it was going to be because of the subject matter of sort of being about loneliness and about, I thought it was going to be sort of a more personal film, and it is, but I thought it was going to be along the lines of, you know, a heartfelt personal film that maybe the public might not, you know, like I saw it as maybe not being like Indiana Jones, because it's not like this like
Yeah.
swashbuckling adventure.
Hmm.
And you know, while there was the exciting scenes at the end, I had originally seen it without, I saw it without music. So
Oh, wow.
it was like those scenes with Elliot. I saw it with the scenes with Elliot in the closet where he's showing him all his toys and everything. They were very personal, and you know,
Yeah.
it just struck me that it was going to be sort of a very sweet movie. But at the same time, I saw a screening of Poltergeist, and I was like, whoa, this is going to be a huge hit, because I saw that with an audience.
Oh, yeah.
With an audience, I saw Poltergeist, and I thought that one, you know, and they were both big hits. But you know, E.T. was a hit because it's like, I think I remember my grandma went to see it. Well, I took her, but then also all of the people that, you know, were her friends that hadn't seen a movie since like since Doris Day, they were all going to see it like multiple times. And
Wow.
I thought that's something, because you know, they haven't seen a movie, you know, forever. There's nothing that really grabbed their interest, or they, you know, they just, you know, and all of a sudden, so I thought here that, you know, there's something here. It's like,
Yeah, I think I never realized what a big hit it was until kind of later on, because I was just a kid watching the movie. But like it
yeah.
was the biggest movie of all time for like a while, like box office wise, which is so crazy.
And then, yeah, and then Star Wars came, Star Wars, I think, passed it because it got re-released or something in the theaters,
Mm,
and they did the new versions. And
yeah.
then Titanic came along, and you know,
I think Jurassic Park beat it at one point. I think Spielberg beat himself with Jurassic Park,
right.
and then I'm sure Star Wars came up in there somewhere, and then now it was Avengers, and now it's Avatar again or something. I don't. It's hard to keep track now, but
It's hard to keep track because it's like the markets are different too, and it's like, and especially now, like, how do you keep track of it now? It
yeah,
seems like
now
some of
every
the,
movie makes like if a movie doesn't make like ET numbers, they're like, oh, it was a flop. And it's like,
yeah, but
it's
now, I mean, now that's out the window, because it's like, you know, Spider-Man came out and did huge numbers, but it's like right away everybody has to go back inside, and you know, it's like
yeah, right now box office doesn't really mean much at all with the
with an asterisk, just
yeah,
the last 2-3 years, you know, just not, it
yeah,
was so brave to put out anything at this time. I asked
definitely.
my stepson to see Spider-Man on the first day, in New York, and it was a
Sweet.
full house, full crowd, you know, but then after that weekend is when everybody, you know, in New York at least, everything heated up again, and it was like,
Mhm.
you know, so it's like it didn't really have a chance to try to beat Avengers or whatever, and you know,
Yeah, just kind of, yeah, it's the sixth highest grossing right now, I think. But yeah, but ET just did like crazy numbers, and then I think it was in theaters for like over a year, or at least a year,
over
and
a year.
that's a crazy run.
And it was number one for almost half that time, I think. It was like number one consistently every week, even
Wow.
over movies coming out that premiering that weekend. Yeah, I don't know. I was away when it came out. I was filming in Vermont, and I was filming a movie called I Am the Cheese. So I
Mm,
did see it in a theater, but it was like a little theater in Barry, Vermont, which
wow.
like a small town in the middle of Vermont. And you know, so and it wasn't like one of those situations where there was a line around the block, because it was a small town theater. So it was like there weren't that many people to go see a movie there, you know. So, but I did see it, you know, somewhere during that opening few weeks. And
I was
then
I was gonna ask, how did life kind of change after ET came out? Because like going back to school or anything, it must have been like
it
a
was
totally
great.
new thing.
Yeah, because I was one semester into high school
Wow.
when I filmed ET. So then when it came out, it was I went back to school, but only briefly before the summer. And then that following year was just crazy. But I was working a lot, so I was doing a lot of plays, and I was also doing a lot of television and working kind of all over the place. So I was in and out of school. But yeah, all of a sudden I was like, popular. I was on the drama class, and sort of under the radar when before I filmed ET. I was in the theater class at University High School in Irvine. And then, sort of, I had friends on the drama class, but I had a few friends, but then all of a sudden ET, and then all of a sudden I'm getting invited to football parties and all that stuff.
Man,
And
that
it's
must
hard
have
to
been,
let it go to your head. I think I did somewhat. It's hard
especially at that
at
age.
that
Like,
age.
yeah, I, I would
But
be feeling like a big shot for sure.
it's funny because I went to high school. I was a year ahead of Will Ferrell, and he went to the same high school,
Wow.
and he was in the drama class. But I at that time I couldn't do the drama class the next year because I couldn't commit to it. I couldn't do the shows or anything like that because I was doing other stuff. So he was in the drama class the year after me, and I don't think I ever met him. He was asking about me. My brother was at the school, and my brother was a year behind me too, and he was always asking my brother, if I was coming back to drama or whatever. And so I never met the man. As far as I know, I never met him. And
That's funny. Will Ferrell was a big Robert Macnaughton fan back in the day.
I don't know
That's
if he was
awesome.
a fan. I think he just wanted to ask me about getting an agent and stuff. I don't
Yeah.
know if he was a fan.
Yeah, yeah, you would have been the guy to talk to about
Yeah, I
about
think
all
that
that.
out, but it's just our paths never crossed. He was there the year after me. I was still going to the school, but I wasn't in drama, and I was basically just going to the school and getting the homework to do on the
Yeah,
set.
man. I did want to pop up some pictures here and kind of let me
Oh, sure.
see. Can you see that there?
Yeah, it's in color. I usually see this picture in black and white.
Yeah, I've seen both, but yeah, I was curious the story behind this. I got a few pictures here, but we'll start with for those just listening to audio, it's Princess Diana, and she's here with Robert and Henry and Drew and Steven, and she's holding an ET plush, and
Yeah,
it's
Drew had just given her that. Drew was the end of the
yeah.
line. It's called a what is it? Greeting line? No, it's like an official line where they go down the line and shake the hands of everybody. And Drew was the last person in the line. And so at the end of the line, she gave Princess Diana the doll. So this was at the royal premiere it had actually had come out in America 6 months earlier, and then they brought it out around Christmas time in the UK. And so they brought us over for like a week to do publicity and stuff, but also to come to the royal premiere. And
Wow.
my grandma's British, British native was. My grandma, who passed away, was from Reading in England. So I brought her to the royal premiere, and I remember they gave us a little training course on how the protocols, as far as like you don't speak until spoken to, and just the little stuff, and we ended up not really needing that at all because they were so informal. And with this picture was from before we met them. I mean, from before the movie was shown. They had the line, and I remember I was so nervous. And it was also the first time I shaved in my life. I was shaving and my grandma's sort of showing me how to do it. But I remember I nicked myself and I was so worried that I was bleeding. You know, I had one tissue paper on my neck. And so I was so nervous. And then Steven, just a little bit down the line, I don't know if you can see it in the picture, but Melissa's with Harrison. And Steven just said, if you're nervous, just look at Harrison. He's done like 6 of these. So look what he does.
Yeah, that must have been just a regular day for him.
Yeah.
Do you remember what she said to you guys or what you said to her, if anything?
Well, for this, I remember it was just so formal, and it was like, I just said, you know, it's an honor to meet you, or something stupid like that. Drew was, of course, like, here, I brought something for you. And then she gave Princess Diana the plush. The really interesting thing happened at the end of the movie. They snuck us out early before, like right when the credits started. And they had snuck Princess Diana and Prince Charles out so she could fix her makeup because she was crying. And so they snuck her out, but then they said they wanted to meet with us. So we had an informal meeting just with them, just Steven and the 3 of us and the Prince and Princess. And she was just saying, you know, I cried so much, I couldn't help it and everything. And then he said to me, well, I laughed so much I cried. And he was very gracious and, you know, and really charming. And, you know, so he sort of directed it at me while she was sort of talking to all of us, you know.
That's pretty wild. I was hoping that would make the cut in the movie Spencer that came out this past year, the Princess Diana movie. But there was no ET meeting in that movie.
That movie, it's incredible.
Yeah, it is incredible. Yeah, Kristen Stewart is phenomenal. But
and I really enjoyed it. I had, you know, no idea what was going on with her. And there's also a movie now called The Princess that just premiered at Sundance. It's supposed to be it's a documentary.
Wow.
It's very good.
Wow. Here's another photo. Can you see that?
Yeah.
This one, I'll describe it again for the people listening, audio only, but it's from a Japanese magazine. I don't know the name of it, but it's Robert here wearing a is that what's the name of the game? Now Space Invaders shirt. And
that's the actual shirt that I wear in the movie. That's my shirt. I have that shirt.
Oh, you still have it?
Yeah, that's the
awesome.
one I wear in the film, which it was my shirt. I'm just trying to figure out what all these doodads are, these dolls and stuff. I think
he's surrounded by a lot of apes and gorilla statues and other like trinkets behind, and it's got to be a photo shoot of some sort. I'm not sure where, but
I believe this was taken at my aunt's house in Irvine.
Wow.
And those were all her apes and stuff. And there was a big ET collector named Mike. I can't remember his last name. And he had taken these pictures and then, you know, and then sold them to this Japanese magazine, but it wasn't like a Japanese photographer shoot or anything like that. It was like it was an ET fan who also would show up at all. He had these connections with Universal and he knew where we were going to be for promotional things. And so he would be there and take pictures and we would sign the pictures and stuff. I can't remember his last name, but
now I'm wondering if I've ever crossed paths with him, because I know a lot of I thought I was the only one who was like an ET obsessive until I started this Facebook group for ET fans, and I'm not even close to the top 10.
There's a book on eBay I think it's like listed for $5,000, and it's like all of us signed it. Drew when she was younger, Drew when she was 6 or 7, and all of the rest of the cast and Steven and everybody. He has everybody in the ET storybook. And that was this guy, Mike, had gotten us to sign it all. So I'm not sure he listed it on eBay. He might have sold it to somebody that has it listed on eBay right now.
So you didn't know this was going to end up in a Japanese magazine?
Oh, no, I had no idea, but you know, he was always giving us stuff as far as like pictures or posters or things like that. So we would always try to, sign stuff for him or, be nice to him. He was very, very friendly, very nice. And he just, was always taking pictures. And, my dad was in marketing and he's like, any publicity is good publicity.
That would have been me if I had been around in 82, probably. Here's another one that's
A regrettable hairstyle.
this was at the 20th anniversary of ET in 2002.
That's when I took my son, the one I took my son to.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what's okay, I was, first of all, the dreadlocks. I had started the dreadlocks, but they were just started. They were like, less than 6 months old. And I was working for the post office in Arizona. And when they notified me about this, I had not much notice that they were going to do this event.
Wow.
I had about a week's notice that they wanted us to do this premiere and all that. So my options at that point, you can either shave your head because you can't undo dreadlocks.
Right.
So I could either go looking like, Edward Norton in American History X, which I didn't want to do, or
No.
the dreadlocks and, have, my wife hates them though. My wife, Bianca, is she's an actress, but she can't stand when I had the dreadlocks. When I met her, I no longer had the dreadlocks.
How long did the dreadlocks last?
I had them till I was 40. So almost 10, I think 10 years.
Wow.
I had them and then I didn't want to be a 40-year-old with dreadlocks. So then I shaved them all off and just grew out my hair naturally,
So then I'm making a comeback for the 40th anniversary then.
No. It was like, I really wanted them to be, sort of longer and like more natural looking, but they were just brand new. So it's like, okay, I got no choice. I got to do it.
No, I think it's great. That's like such an encapsulation of 2002 is those pictures from that premiere, because it's like you got the dreadlocks and then like the Spy Kids are hanging out there, and then I can't even remember who else is there. It's like just a perfect time capsule.
I didn't get to meet anybody. It was,
wow.
First of all, like I worked the night before. I was brand new with the post office, fairly brand new. But I was I couldn't take time off the day before because somebody else already had the time off. And so I couldn't take the day before. So, and I worked nights. So I had to work from like 6 p.m. until 6:30 in the morning, the day of the premiere. And so then I got a flight to LA, like a 10 a.m. flight to LA. And then they took me straight from there to the premiere, which I got to the premiere at 11. And then I was supposed to, the movie started at 1. So I did all the red carpet stuff in just a days. I had like worked all night the night before and went straight from the airport to the red carpet, got out. And then all of a sudden it was interviews and pictures and all that. And so to be honest, I was like, so I worked 12 hours the night before. I was dead tired and I was watching the movie with the orchestra and everything. And I started nodding off, which is a bad thing because my son was in my lap and Steven was right behind me.
Oh no.
And we were in the balcony and Steven was right behind me. And I was like my son was like, sort of, he's, watching the movie and he was really enthralled, but I started nodding off because I couldn't, I was just so dead tired.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
And then I pulled it together at the end. They had us all come up on stage at the very end, which was great because that was sort of the last time all of us were together, including people that are no longer with us.
Yeah.
Carlo was there. Carlo
Melissa
Rambaldi
Matheson.
was there.
Oh yeah.
And Pat, Pat Welsh, she died shortly after the filming. So she wasn't there, but Alan Davio, the cameraman, director of photography, not cameraman.
Yeah, he just passed away just a year or two ago.
He died from COVID.
Yeah.
So that was sort of the last time we were all together. And luckily they got like a really great group shot of all of us. And, and they sent us a really nice framed version.
Wow.
the entire group, which it's kind of like no one knew that was going to be the last time we were all together.
Yeah, that's
They made
something.
such a hoopla over that show when we got on stage together, and I was next to Steven, and I said, "What are we going to do for the 50th? Go on the moon or something?" Like, what about this? So
Yeah, that was you don't see a lot of hoopla for anniversaries anymore, but that 20th,
no.
I think they got some stuff planned for the 40th, it seems like, but the 20th, like Toys R Us was just flooded with ET
Oh
merchandise.
yeah,
It was,
that was the first time they came out with the action figures. That's where I got my action figure.
yeah, I was
And
gonna,
it said they were going to put out dolls of us, and yeah, the
yeah,
Michael doll. That was the
yeah,
first time. That was the first time they ever put out action figures of the cast. They had
yeah,
ET, of course. ET was everywhere, but you know, at the time, at the original release. But I was so excited. It was like the best thing that ever happened to me.
yeah. I know you have an Instagram that's dedicated to this guy here, the action figure version of Michael. And how did
It's
you
so
come up
much
with
easier
that?
than taking selfies with people. Like I meet people at the shows, or if I meet somebody randomly on the street, I'll just ask them to take a picture with the doll.
Yeah.
Yeah, it weirds some people out. I remember who was it? Carl Weathers. I said, will you mind taking a picture with my doll? And he's like, I ain't touching that thing. He goes, I'll take a picture with you and the doll if you want. And I go, okay. And so I got a picture of me holding the doll. Same thing with Shatner. I didn't even ask Shatner. I just said, can I get a picture with you? And then held my doll up myself.
Yeah.
But
That's a great idea though. I think it's so fun to see
well, because
just
I
scrolling
age,
through there and seeing
it all
who
stays
else.
the same. So
Yeah.
it's like it's good because it's like, it's a representation of me, but I don't have to be in the picture if I don't feel like it.
Yeah. I love the shot of you and Henry both holding your action figure counterparts.
That was after a night of sushi, and I had to buy him quite a few sake shots in order to get that picture.
Was that your
Felt
your
weird.
Elliot toy too?
Yeah, I brought. Yeah, he doesn't have any of that stuff. He doesn't have any
What
of the
kind of
toys or anything. His kids might, but he doesn't have. He's a little bit less, embarrassing than me. So
what kind of stuff do you have, either from the actual movie or just stuff that you collect?
as far as I have the Michael dolls. I had some of the other toys, the spaceship and some of the other toys, but I just gave them to our next door neighbor here, has children that are right the perfect age for that.
Mhm.
That they told us that he had a little ET doll, and so I gave him, a lot of my ET stuff.
Wow.
But I have like for me, I have like the original costume that I wore, the Space Invader shirt. I have
Nice.
the shirt that says no nukes on it that I wear in the movie, and I have the sort of a football jersey that I wear when I first encounter ET.
Yeah.
So I still have those. I have quite a bit of, sort of photos and clippings and stuff like that. Not really any posters. I'm always signing other people's posters, and I'm jealous because it's like I don't have an actual ET poster.
Yeah, I've got one signed by you right over
Wow,
here. I don't think you can see it from here. It's on
I
the
can see it.
sidewall, but I got you and D to
Nice.
sign that. It's one from the 20th.
I did have a laser disc that I got signed by everybody when they were doing the publicity in 2002. They had us all in a hotel together, and we were doing interviews with reporters and stuff.
mhm.
And so it was the ideal time. I got everything signed for my son Noah,
Ah,
and Drew was the last one I got signed, and it was like a really fancy box set, laser disc, like a black box with like
yeah.
the moon and everything on it. And so I got everybody to sign in like silver, pen, not Sharpie, but like a sort of a silver glittery pen. And
Yeah.
the last person I got signed was Drew. And because there were so many other signatures on it, I smudged hers.
No.
And so then I was like, okay. So then a little bit later, I mean, he was 5, so he didn't know about it. So I went back and fixed her signature, which, in autograph circles is like a no. But I knew
Yeah.
I wasn't gonna ever sell it. So it was just sort of a personal thing. that I wanted to get, and everybody personalized it to Noah, you know, Steven and everybody, Kathy, and
That's next
so,
level. That's great. Wow. I did want to get you to tell a story you told me when we met. I gave you one of these guys. It's
yeah.
Orbidon from the ET Adventure Ride, and a girl named Katie in my ET group did the artwork, and it turned out real nice. But I remember I gave it to you, and you were like, "Oh, great. What is this?" And then you told me a story about you and Henry going to Universal Studios.
Oh yeah, because we never went on the ET ride. I think he's been since, but they gave us a chance to go on. Well, we were doing some kind of publicity event or something at Universal in LA, and it was right after they opened the ET ride. So I think around 93, 94, somewhere around there. And so they said, you know, we're doing this publicity event, but you have just enough time if you want to do a ride. You can go on any ride you want. And I knew they wanted us to go on ET, but Henry and I were like, I was in my early 20s. Henry was in a teen. And we wanted to go on the Jurassic Park ride because that was like a thrill ride. And, you know, with like water and all that stuff, it was like a roller coaster. So we both decided to, you know, we said, well, we don't want to go on Jurassic Park. And it was like a kind of okay. And they took us over there. And we went on Jurassic Park, and it was great. But I've never been on the ET ride, so I didn't know. When you showed me that, I was like, well, it's some kind of a mushroom or something, but it doesn't look like the thing on that he's growing on the spaceship.
Yeah, I've seen someone selling those on eBay too. The mushrooms from the spaceship.
A friend of mine has one.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to get my hands on something like that, but it's crazy trying to find some of this stuff. But yeah,
I don't
one
know
of
what
these
he paid for it or anything, but he has one. I know that.
one of these days, we'll get you guys on the ET ride. It's pretty great.
There's still one in Florida.
Yeah, I think that's the only one now. They had it in Japan, they had it in Hollywood, and they had it in Florida, and that's the last one remaining. And they just brought back the effect where ET will say your name at the end of the ride. He'll say goodbye.
Oh, that's great.
Goodbye, Robert. Or you give him like your name before you get on, and it's a blast.
Nice.
And, what I've heard is
try it someday. Someday I'll get a chance. I was in Florida, but we were doing the convention, and I never got a chance to get. The convention was the exact same hours that the park was open.
Yeah.
So there was really no opportunity to go to the park.
Yeah, it's hard with those convention schedules. Seem like they can be pretty brutal. You're just there all day.
Yeah, sometimes I try to schedule time where I can come in before, or possibly spend like the convention I did in Atlanta. We scheduled time before the convention so we could visit my wife's family in Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I try to do that just so I'm not just like coming into a place and like not even seeing the place.
Yeah.
You know, like a lot of times it's just the airport and then the hotel or whatever where the convention's at, and then back to the airport and then, you know, out of there. And I hate that because it's like, I want to get the feel of some of the places we're going to.
Yeah, for sure.
Atlanta, I did get to spend some time in because we were there visiting Tennessee and, you know.
Wow. Well, this has been great. Thank you so much for taking the time. And I know 40th anniversary is coming up, so hopefully some fun things for that. They'll finally make a Michael Funko Pop or something.
Oh, I wish.
Yeah.
When those came out, I took my son. There's a store in New York called Toy Tokyo.
Yeah.
And they have the whole bottom floor of it is nothing but Funko Pops. And this is sort of before the craze even took off. But when they first put out the ET Funko Pops, I took one of the kids and they were like 8 or 9. And we went downstairs and he was like looking and he's like, oh, they have ET Funko Pops. And they had ET and Gertie and Elliot. And he's looking and he goes, where's yours? And I said, oh, they're sold out. Mine's the most popular one. Just, you know, but it's maybe someday.
Here's hoping. I think now's the time. But yeah, happy 40th to ET, and then maybe we'll get you and somebody else on to do a little mini reunion or something, or I don't know. This has been great though. I really appreciate you hopping on.
Thanks. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much for tuning in. I want to thank Ruby Mariscal for our amazing artwork and intro animation. And I want to thank Kitty Terry for letting me use her amazing song as our theme music. And I want to thank you for tuning in. And until next time, I'll be right here.